How are you feeling about being on the couch?
Yeah, very comfortable.
All right, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, we purposely did not allow you to come in when Roland was interviewing, because I did want to throw you into the deep end, right? You make life pretty hard for me in the UAE quite often, so I think this was my chance. So welcome to the couch, right?
Thank you.
All right. So I'm not going to take too much of your time, right? I've got 3 questions, right, or 3 points of discussions. Now, you've obviously been running the Middle East for 2 years. I think we've known each other for 2 years. I think I was unluckily, I was one of the first few people you met when you landed, right? And you actually came from a very interesting part of the world, which was the South Americas, where you were running Adyen in that market. So my first question is, what's different about the Middle East compared to some of the other markets that you worked in?
The first thing that comes to mind, that if you look at the ranking of some of the Middle Eastern countries versus some countries in Latin America, is the safety feeling that people have, right? And if you look at UAE, ranks very high. Brazil, where I spent 7 years, ranks unfortunately very low. So in Brazil, there has been a very hard drive to get cash out of the society. You can go to many Latin American countries. You will not have, there's no need for cash, right? Every person that sells something out on the streets, they will have a small payment device. And now, in the last years, if you see PIX, which is a real-time online payment method that came up, they're destroying it, right? They're doing super well. So there's been a drive for many years, and there have been an incredibly interesting ecosystem of startups that, I mean, they went through the roof by offering solutions to mom and pop stores, people selling stuff on the streets. Now, if you go into the Middle East, that specific drive is not there. You can have piles of cash with you in the Middle East, and you won't be robbed, so to say, right? So that's a complete that drive to reduce cash is not there. It's the first thing that comes to mind. And for that reason, payment innovation in some of these Latin American countries has been there for much longer than, for example, in the Middle East, where, for example, the pandemic has been a big driver. So that those are two differences. That also means that I think the Middle East in general has been underserviced until quite recently when it comes to a digital payments ecosystem, which is now coming very rapidly. The benefit of that is that merchants can skip steps, right? There are solutions out there now that are very suitable to the needs of merchants, which in many other markets took years to develop, and they're here already, and you can use them.
Yeah, no, and so I echo your statement, and I'll go on a limb, right? I'll go on a limb, and I'll go back in time when I was in retail, right? We were grossly underserved, right? The conversations I used to have with my payment providers was purely about price, right? And no sooner did I sign a contract with one, in 15 minutes, I would get a call from another provider saying I could do it for them cheaper. And I think that became endemic in the culture, right? Where it all became about how quickly could you get to the bottom, rather than we have solutions which can make customer journeys more enriching, which could actually provide data, something Roland talked about. Obviously, you'll hear it on the show, and you know, the power of unified commerce. And we never actually got that offered. So we had to, as retailers, build these things ourselves, right? Which was a challenge because that's not core to our business, right? So I totally appreciate your sort of underserved market, right? So obviously now that creates an interesting challenge, right? You have markets which are further down the evolutionary curve, but that by no means is by no means is it a negative statement. It's just a statement of fact. That throws a whole host of challenges and opportunities, right? So in the last couple of years, while you've been trying to get a firm footing, right? How have you been responding to these challenges, right? In a manner that still stays true to the Adyen ethos of how you do business, but at the same time win business.
I think we are, the team in the Middle East, and in the past also in Latin America, we're greatly using those opportunities, right? Because it comes with that platform where products and features have been developed somewhere in the world. It's a single platform, so it becomes available to other parts of the world. So we see that we can provide solutions to merchants in the Middle East, I would say nothing is really easy, right? But relatively easy. If it exists somewhere, we typically try to offer it in other markets as well. That is super convenient for merchants. And that is why typically when we launch a new market, we see an initial influx of existing merchants. That is usually also the business case for us going into the market is existing merchants. So what that means is that we announce a new market, be it UAE, be it Japan, whatever market. Almost the same day, we have existing merchants reaching out to our account managers. Hey, when can we go live? Or what are you offering there? For them is yet another market where they do not have to use another system, another solution. And if they have, for example, the same cash register in the market that they use in markets where they already use Adyen, that's a relatively easy
plug in.
Yes, exactly. So for us, I don't see a market. I mean, it enables us to grow if a market is a little bit behind some other markets, but we can quite quickly bring those merchants on par with the rest of the world. And that's where we see initially an uptake of international merchants. And for example, in the UAE, very soon in our journey there, we saw also local merchants showing interest in that solution.
It is. Let me ask you a question. I see that device lying there on the table, right?
Yes.
I don't have a clue what it is, right?
Good one.
Tell me what it is.
This is actually, we announced it a few weeks ago. This is a device that we actually developed together with our customers. It's another example of listening to your customer. So,
is it relevant for the Middle East?
It is super relevant for the Middle East.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
sorry.
and it's good that you bring it up because this is a small payment device. It's a card reader, and in the Middle East we still have a lot of cash on delivery.
Tremendous.
Right? So you order something, you want to pay the moment you see it. You now usually done with cash, which is expensive. It's clumsy. You prefer not to have cash there. So this will allow people in a delivery role to basically also offer a card payment. So we digitalize that, and it connects very easily with with their phones and so on. So absolutely relevant for the Middle East because every day you see the number of motorboys delivering stuff, and we can those with this solution.
And however quickly you're rolling this out, I think it's incredibly relevant because we did a study a while back where we actually realized that it was not necessarily that the customers wanted to use cash on delivery. They wanted to pay on delivery, right? So they were very happy to flash their credit card or their debit card, but as long as they had the satisfaction of getting what they did. And I think that is because there was, a litany of sort of poor delivery experiences where people had ordered, a green dress and received a blue dress, right? And they wanted to kind of make sure. Give me another use case that you're working on currently, right, for the Middle East, which is unique. Is there one?
At this moment, we're mostly focused on bringing customers along on the unified commerce journey. Sure. So in that sense, it's not something really unique for us. Let's deploying a relatively new device. It's a concept that we strongly believe in. We strongly believe that there is a need from a consumer perspective, but also from the merchant perspective, to offer more unified solution. Right. So it doesn't matter where you shop, you get the same kind of experience. It makes it easier for the merchant to do refunds no matter where the orders were bought, and there is unified data for the merchant as well. The Middle East is also a region where, with a relatively small portion of volume done on e-commerce, it's been a physical market, right? So now, definitely driven by the pandemic, more of a understanding of a digital, the need to really do digital well. We can help them with this, and that is something that traditionally wasn't available in the market. So we're very strongly focused on helping merchants bring a unified solution to a merchant. And I give a good example. I think a couple of days ago, 6th Street went live in one of the malls, right? So it is a good example of the other way around. So not physical merchants going online. It's a merchant that until a few days ago was purely digital, opening a large store, but not in a traditional way, right? You don't see a counter. It's an environment where you see tablets, you shop, you get a product, you fit it, but in the store itself, that stock is not there. It comes from behind the store, bring it to you once you've ordered it on the tablet, and then you pay and you leave. Obviously, it needs to have a fitting payment solution as well. So those kind of merchants love talking to Adyen because it's non-traditional, it's not siloed. It's really, we help them with different APIs they can integrate to make that happen.
We're going through interesting times, right? You obviously keep your eyes closed, your ears closed to what merchants are doing globally. Is there any advice or are there any suggestions that you would want to make for merchants, large or small, who exist in the UAE, right?
I'd like to answer it from a different perspective.
Go ahead.
I see most success with merchants that have a really open mind to the role that payments can play, right? You just mentioned that in the past you've been only choosing based on the lowest price, right? The moment
I had no option.
Yeah, and the moment you move away from that and bring your finance team together with your IT team and the other teams and make the decision on the best payment solution that works for all of them, that ultimately will lead to solutions that their customers, their consumers will adopt. And that's a bit of a change because that Arjun exists in hundreds of companies still in the Middle East because they have the same way of selecting a payment solutions provider. And that's what we're trying to change. So my advice is indeed do the same that you did. Try to look for other aspects upon which you select a payment solutions provider, and that will ultimately help the business.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. This was not a plug. This was not about saying Arjun, but I think that is the right answer. I think a lot of merchants need to think unified, and I think if you think unified, your paradigm shifts, your decision making shifts, you choose things differently. Sander, thank you. I apologize I put you on the spot, 11th hour, but I think you did wonderfully, right? And it was a pleasure. And I really want to thank you and Nina for hosting us here in your offices in Amsterdam. It's been a wonderful 2 days.
Thank you for making the time and effort to come over. Very much enjoyed showing you around.
It was a pleasure, right? So with that, we'll fist bump and we'll say,
see you in Dubai.
See you in Dubai.